All right, so thank you for everyone that has moved over to the Patreon side of what I'm doing. And, I'm not going to stop doing YouTube videos, but what I am going to do is, like this video, I'm going to post as a private link to my Patreons, like 12, 14 hours before I make it public, so they get first dibs. That's $3 a month. For $10, you get a couple extra videos a month. For $20, you get some extra privileges, and for $100, you get to see my cock. So, if it was me, I'd spend $100 because I just love cock so much. But yeah, there's a lot of content. I just found somebody that works for my production company, and what he's going to do is do a lot of the posting, photos, videos, all the stuff we're not really using for the documentary, or some little previews. It's like constant content will be uploaded, but I'm not going to be doing that part of it, so I can focus solely on story creating. And I want to start doing a lot more of that. I have a lot more in me. We're probably, what are we? I'm like 31 in this series, in the Do Marriage. I'm 34 now. Even right now, even this last week has been so fucking gnarly. Like, if anyone knew what was really going on in my life, I think it would like blow your mind. What has been going on this last couple weeks have been really interesting, which is cool, because like, as time goes on, I can tell you guys what's going on, but, let's stay where we're at in the present moment. So if you want to support me with Patreon, that's the best way. I don't have to ask for GoFundMes. I don't have to try to, please buy my album. If you want to do all that, the links are on there. Patreon, I'm actually providing a service, and I'm coming through with what I say. Please stop emailing me for blotter or books. I got really behind, and the books were the major thing. Blotter's not the issue, but it's the books. Like, I refunded someone today, and I ordered him a book off Amazon. Like, here's your money back, plus you get a free book, just because, I feel bad. I'm not doing that shit on purpose. So right now, as of right this moment, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you offer me. I just can't do it right now. Just simply, it's unfair to these other people. I want to get completely caught up. When I get to 10,000 subscribers, I can sell merchandise directly on here, and I don't have to be the one that ships it. There's like third parties that ship it for you. And, I'll sign a bunch of stuff, they'll have it, and then I pay whatever I have to pay them, and then it's guaranteed, guaranteed comes out. But I'm not in that position now, and I need to make right on people that have already ordered books or blotter or won raffle stuff. I do what I say, but sometimes I lag, and, I'm trying to get better. My word is not that poo-poo. It's pretty good, but it's still quasi poo-poo. So I'm trying to get better. Anyway, let's get on to the story. So when we had left off last time, I got a little misty-eyed because I was talking about, legitimate time that I tried to kill myself. And that really happened. I mean, I tried and it didn't work. I don't know why that much heroin didn't kill me, but it didn't. I mean, maybe I have a higher purpose in life. I want to believe that that's what it is. Just to start butt fucking conga lines in really random public places like subway stations, bus stops, bowling alley, bowling alley butt fucking conga lines. So, no, but it was a really difficult time for me. Anyone that has suicidal ideation, or if you've actually tried it, I mean, I'm not talking, there's people that do it for attention, for sure. That particular time was not for attention. I felt hopeless. I felt despondent. I was in yet another toxic relationship. I was going back to prison again. And my alcoholism and drug addiction was on some next level shit. I mean, I was really going hard, and I didn't have that much experience with alcohol. I was a new alcoholic, something that I had, I drank in high school, probably alcoholically looking back on it. It's not normal to drink 13, 14 beers in a night, I mean, that's just not normal behavior. Some people in high school did, some people didn't. Most of the people that I knew in high school that would drink that kind of, alcohol consumption at a party are dead or in prison now because they turned into full-blown drug addicts, or they're sober. That's really it. Sobriety, prison, death. And there's a few people that, have maybe somehow managed it, but it's inevitable that you're going to have those kind of consequences if you're like a true drug addict, which I believe that I was. I mean, I certainly think I was. If I wasn't, then if this was just some phase that I went through for 20 years, then I guess I'm just a selfish piece of shit. But, I think I'm like a legitimate, like, have the disease of addiction drug addict. And at that particular moment, I felt like it wasn't going to end, I think a lot of it had to do with that I had 3 years sober. And when I had 3 years sober, I didn't think I was ever going to go back. It was like, I ain't going back. It's done. My life was better. I had real friends, like when you're around drug people all the time, it's not real friendships, Now, once in a while, you'll find someone that's solid. If you guys get arrested, they'll take the blame. You go to jail, they'll send you $20 once a year or something. Cool. Yes. Once in a while, you have someone in the drug world like that. But when you're really sober and when you're doing the right thing, a lot of genuine people come into your life. And that's when I formed my best friendships. In fact, that 3-year period is why I believe that I have the amount of close friends that I do, because that's when those relationships were nurtured. So when I lost 3 years, and it's crazy because you're sober and then everybody trusts you again, family trusts you. They don't question you. I'm like, hey mom, I need $6 to get shoelaces. If I say that sober, my mom's like, okay, cool, here you go. If I say that when I'm using heroin or something, my mom locks me out of her house because she knows that $6 is going to buy a cotton off somebody or something, and that's just the reality of it. I mean, there was a period where my parents would not let me in their house because every time I went in there, I would take something and then go to the pawn shop with it. I mean, that's just how I got. So I'd gotten sober, that had gone away, and then I had tried to fill some sort of void by jumping from one toxic codependent relationship to the next. That's what my second book's about. I think I have a lot to say on that particular subject: codependency, toxic relationships, PTSD from prison, because prison affected me for sure. And I think that it came out most strongly in these interpersonal relationships. I just didn't want to be alone. And going to prison, all the introspection that goes on, whether you're in solitary confinement or whether you're just doing time. I mean, every night when you're going to bed and you don't have a pillow to sleep on, you're just on some shitty slab of metal, you kind of think about why you're there in the first place. And years and years and years of that really makes being alone something that I couldn't handle anymore. I mean, not everyone's like that. I know convicts that like their independence, they like their freedom. I'm not like that. I'm petrified to be alone. I always have to be on the phone. I always have to be with somebody. I always have to be in a relationship. That's just how I am. And prison made all of these things, just much, much worse than it was before I'd gone. So that night that I tried to kill myself, I woke up and I wasn't dope sick. I don't know why. I mean, I guess my opiate receptors were so saturated, I just wasn't sick when I woke up. It's like the first time I woke up not dope sick in a long, long time. But I needed alcohol. And you know how when you get really drunk, you wake up the next morning and you're thirsty on a level that you've never been that thirsty on. Like, you could just take a straw and like put it into a lake and you literally could probably guzzle the whole lake because you're that thirsty. I get like that if I'm really hungover. I'm sure most people can relate with that if you've ever been hungover, which most people have. But I never really get like that off heroin. This particular morning, I had it was just like having a really, really, really bad hangover. I mean, I was very thirsty and my head felt so heavy. I remember I went to the liquor store and I didn't have any money, so I had a spange. I had to ask people for spare change, and I think I got like a 40 or something, which isn't much for what my intake was at the time. once I had a little bit of alcohol in me, it made me feel a little better, and I started calling people for money. Now, I had promised my wife that we were gonna go on a trip to Morro Bay because that was like her favorite place to vacation with me. She liked bringing her kid there, and it's now Christmas Day. I'm calling everybody on my phone, asking them if they can send me some money, you know, just basically telling them I'm fucked. And most people I'm calling are like, Ryan, are you on drugs? And I'm like, listen, don't patronize me, motherfucker. Of course I'm on drugs, but I'm also in a really bad situation, alone on Christmas. I try to kill myself. Hello? Hello? Click. And that was pretty much everybody I called was like that. I mean, nobody wanted to help me. Who wants to help a junkie? Not a lot of people, especially not with money. You know, people say the most ridiculous stuff. I would like call people crying, I'd be like, I try to kill myself, I'm alone, I'm on drugs. Hey man, go to an AA meeting. I'm like, what the fuck? Are you serious, dude? You can't send me 30 bucks? What the fuck? Click. And this went on for a while. I finally called one of my buddies. He's a pro skateboarder. He's got money, and he's also a drug addict. And I just told him what was up. I'm like, listen, I'm in a bad situation. I'm alone on Christmas. I tried to off myself last night. Can you send me some money? He's like, how much do you need? I'm like, I don't know, like 200 bucks maybe? He sent it to me, Western Union. So now I had 200 bucks, and I ended up calling somebody in Santa Barbara that had come up. He would like, what he was doing for a living was he would deliver, he was like a courier, you know, he would deliver like wheelchairs and stuff to people that are in hospice, but he would also have controlled medications that he could deliver. It was like in some locked part of his trunk. I think it was like in a lockbox. This guy was a criminal. He's my friend, right? And he had stolen a huge box of fentanyl patches. I forget which milligram they were, but you know, with fentanyl patches, and it's not the fentanyl that is in your dope. It's not the fentanyl that you're reading about in newspapers. Before the whole fentanyl thing, when China started mass producing this like these research chemical version of fentanyl, you know, they put them in lollipops, they put it in these patches. It was one of the strongest opioids known to man. And I mean, it was so strong that they made these patches that were time release. You just put them on you, and fentanyl slowly gets released into your blood system throughout the day, and it keeps you like loaded on like a pretty even level. And you know, it's not it's just this, it's either these patches, and some of them are gel and some of them look more like a sticker. We always wanted the gel because you could cut the gel, like we would scrape it with a razor and we put it in like a glass, something you'd marinate a steak in. We'd like fill it with this fentanyl gel from the patches, put it in the oven, and it would cook into this like crispy, almost like brownish paste, like yellowish brown. And then we get a razor blade and we'd scrape it and we would inject it. Some people smoke it, but that's, you know, so you want the gel patches. That's like the good ones. And I was asking this guy, I'm like, because I had 200 bucks. I could have gone and gotten, I mean, you know, at that time, I think I could have gotten 5 grams of heroin for 200 bucks, something like that. Yeah, 5-pack for 200 in LA in 2016. That's what I was going for. There was that, or this guy came up on these fentanyl patches and I was seeing what he would do. I'm like, hey, I got 200. Can we come up with some sort of agreement? Because he didn't know. First of all, fentanyl was already killing people at that time period. So it had such a hardcore connotation to it that this guy didn't even, he was like spooked just to have it. Came up on it, didn't know its value, didn't know who to sell it to, didn't want to sell it to the wrong person. That person dies. You know, the whole fentanyl thing is very confusing. Most people don't know what they're talking about with it. And yes, I don't know like the different affinities and how it binds to your receptors. I'm not like that hardcore of a drug enthusiast where I spend like hours on Arrowhead and know about all these crazy scientific things that, you know, I mean, I should if I was a drug user. That's honestly the smart way to go if you're using drugs that can kill you. But I was just never that way. I just had a very rudimentary understanding of how these things worked. So I knew that he was scared, and I knew that I kind of had leverage because I knew more about it than him. And I called him, and he told me that he would give me 40 patches for 200 bucks. Street value for patches at that time. Well, I asked him forget what the milligram was, but The street value for those patches at that time was like $20 or $30 a patch. And he was shooting me love by giving me that many for $200, you know? Like that would last me. I knew I was going to prison January 6th. And this is, you know, Christmas. Yeah, this is Christmas Day. So I'm talking about like, I'm going to prison in 2 weeks. So that was my plan. Like, fuck the heroin. I'm gonna go up to Santa Barbara and get these patches. Maybe I can try to get my parents to hook up a trip to Morro Bay, because that was like my ultimate goal, was to bring her and like offer a truce, because that's what she wanted to do for Christmas. And then I could stop by Santa Barbara, because Santa Barbara's on the way to Morro Bay, get the fentanyl patches, somehow facilitate the trip if I could get my parents to pay for it. So I called my dad, because I already had the fentanyl lined up, so I knew I was getting that. So regardless if I could get her the trip, that was my plan. I called my dad, and you know, he knows I'm in bad shape, and he also knows I'm going to prison. So there is a side of him that definitely feels bad for me and empathizes with my situation. I'm like, Dad, listen, I know I haven't been that great this year, because he had already figured out about the ARCO, like, you know, how I was like basically exploiting that situation to feed my addiction and alcoholism. So he wasn't exactly happy with me at this point. And I explained that to him. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. The reason that I ever stole from my family is because I figured that they had enough money where it wasn't going to affect them. They weren't living paycheck to paycheck, and that's how I justified it in my mind. I'm like, okay, this is, if I steal $100 right now, it's not going to affect their lifestyle. Now this, of course, is a fallacious way of thinking. It's a complete fallacy. I'm not living in reality at this point. I'm delusional. I mean, stealing is stealing, and if you steal from your friends or family especially, you're a piece of shit. I mean, nobody likes a thief. But that's how I justified it. I figured that it wasn't going to affect him as much as it was going to help me, you know? So I talked to him and I said, listen, going to prison, let me spend one Christmas up in Morro Bay with my wife and my son. My dad hated it when I said my son. He's like, first of all, Ryan, he is not your son. That is one of your, it's a bimbo fan son. I told you not to marry her. You're an idiot. But with that being said, it is Christmas and I will help you. So he ended up getting us a hotel up in Morro Bay, I think for like 2 days, I want to say. I'm not even allowed to travel outside of my county because I'm on federal probation, but like back then I didn't give a fuck. I did whatever I wanted. So now I have my whole plan. I'm gonna go up to Morro Bay. When I got with her, my ex-wife, she could like, you know, she could pay for the gas, she could pay for the food. I'm giving her a nice hotel and I'm driving up there. And, you know, so and then I was gonna go get the fentanyl. So I end up calling her and I tell her my plan. Now, we had such a roller coaster relationship. When I called her, she was being nice. She's like, hey. I'm like, hey, she didn't say sorry, you know? She didn't say sorry for not letting me spend Christmas Eve with her and having me wake up alone on Christmas Day like that. You know, and I told her that I tried to kill myself, and she's just like, oh, what the fuck kind of response is that? And like, as soon as I yell, she, you know, she kind of gets all scared and shit. And she's like, please don't yell at me. I'm like, okay, look, check it out. All I want is to go up to Morro Bay and give you the Christmas that you deserve, baby. Can we do that? And she's like, oh my God, how did you figure it out? That is so crazy because you're such a drug addict. And I'm just like, you know, that's how she sounded when she was nice. Not like, yeah, drug addict. Like when she's nice, she sounded like way stupider. Yeah, how did you pull it off? Ugh. Sorry. I'm sure she, like, you know, I'm sure she thinks she's not a bad person, but she is. So we agree to go up there. On the way up there, I'm like, we got to stop in Santa Barbara. And she's like, why? I need to get fentanyl patches. Thinking she was going to get mad, but I just, you know. She's like, oh my God, I would love to do that with you. It's like, all right, cool. I mean, I always preferred when she was doing drugs with me because it kind of like didn't have to hide it. It just made it kind of more convenient. I'm not saying that I tried to get her to do drugs for that purpose, but, you know, she was wishy-washy. Sometimes she was on drugs, sometimes she wasn't. So we ended up getting these patches, and I remember going to my friend's house, my friend Jeff's house, and this other guy met us there, and, you know, he brought all the patches. Big-ass stack of them, you know, like that big of a stack. He's like, here you go. I'm like, and it's not the gel kind. It's like the just straight, looks like a Band-Aid material. It's like the adhesive. So I don't know what to do with that. I'm like, well, I don't know how to use these. I mean, if it was gel, I would know how to do it, but I don't know how to do it because it's not gel. And he's like, just put it on your arm. I'm like, no. What junkie uses a drug as prescribed? I'm going to abuse it in any way that I can, right? So I like, oh, it's like clear. It's like translucent. I remember I opened the package, and my wife and stepkid are in the car. I'm just inside, and she would always get mad that I would, you know, leave her for 2 hours in the car. But my friends didn't want her in the house. They hated her. All of my friends hated her. My family, everyone hated this girl. Rightfully so. So we start cutting up little pieces of this fentanyl patch. And I mean, I cut it into like, I don't remember how big it is, maybe like that big, and it's translucent. So I'm just like cutting it in half, and then I'm cutting it into quarters. And I'm planning on just taking a little piece and putting it in my mouth, and like chewing on it like it's bubble gum or something. So I take a little piece and I do it. And then on second thought, I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't think this can be that dangerous. So I just take another half. Pretty soon, I like have no idea how much I've taken. I've just eaten a bunch of this fentanyl. And the guy that sold it to me, he's like, dude, you really got to chill out. And like, while I'm eating it, I'm dope sick. So I'm like puking. I'm like puking. And then like the little piece of translucent fentanyl patch will go on the floor, and I'll like just dive down and grab it and like put this, you know, puke drenched piece of fentanyl patch back in my mouth. And the guy's just like, oh my God. It's like a pothead. He's like offended at this absurd dope fiend behavior. You know, I like keep puking this shit up and eating it because I don't want to miss just one drop of the drug. And he's like, I don't know, bro, like I don't want this to kill you. And I'm just like, it's not gonna kill me, dude. I have such a big heroin habit, and I don't feel it, you know, like after like 30 minutes I don't feel it. I'm like back in the car with her, and I just get the patches and we end up leaving. We're driving up there. My dad had gotten us this hotel, nice hotel. I think he got, I want to say just one night, 1 or 2 nights. I don't really remember. But we go up there, and the whole car ride, I'm not feeling the fentanyl, and I just keep eating more of these patches. I mean, I'm chewing on them, like I said, like bubble gum, and I'm just, and she's like, how much should I take? And I'm like, here, take a little piece. I don't know. I heard this can kill you very easily. And she's just like, you know, what are we doing? I'm like, do you want it? She's like, yes. Okay, shut the fuck up then. Jesus Christ. So I'm driving, and we get up there, and all of a sudden it just hits me. I'm just loaded. I'm so high off this. And the thing is I have no idea how much I ate. The only thing I can do is go back and look at how many patches are missing. And I've only done maybe like, between her and I, we've gone through 2 patches. And I'm pretty sure that I ate like a patch and 3/4. Like, I mean, I'm really high. I don't know if you guys have ever done methadone when you don't have a habit, like just eating the 40 milligram wafers. Like, we used to crush them up into powder, just stir them up in our drink and pound them. Like, if you have no habit, those 40 milligram wafers will rock you. You know, like, it is like I mean, it's that kind of opioid high where you nod out, and we've talked about it before, and you come back to and just say random crazy shit, you know? You're like, you know, I'm trying to think of something random to say, but I don't know. I don't think it'll come out correctly. But, you know, you come back up and you just say something totally random, really random, like my friend Jesse when he's like, I didn't take the fucking vodka, bitch. You know, when you say stuff like that, like this angry, coming up for air type, just random thing that you blurt out, that's when you're on methadone. Fentanyl is about 3 times crazier than that. So I'm like in some sort of fentanyl coma, not literally, but like I can barely talk. I can barely, like, gets to a point where I had to, you know, pull over, and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, there's no way I can drive. And she's like, oh my God, how much did you eat? I'm like, you saw what I ate. And then I'm just nodding out on the steering wheel. Kids in the backseat. It's horrible, right? And I'm like telling her, I'm like, I don't know if I can drive like this. She's like, why are you talking like you had a stroke, dude? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm honestly talking like that because I lost motor function. That's what happens when you do like Demerol does that to me too. Mass amounts of morphine or Dilaudid do the same thing. Like Dilaudid, I don't even feel. I don't get the, when you inject Dilaudid, the reason everyone likes them is because you get that crazy rush from the Dilaudids. That was cool when I was like 18. I have not felt that rush for so long because I always have a habit. But if you take enough Dilaudid orally, because I can't fit enough in to get the effect, but if you take enough orally, you get really fucked up from it. I'm talking about a lot of them, like the K4s, K8s. Take a bunch of Dilaudid, you get really loaded. This fentanyl was probably the highest I've ever been without dying. I mean, I didn't know how much I ate, and you got to remember, I've been drinking on top of it. So I'm like, oh, I'm not, and I could not communicate. Eventually, she's just like, Jesus Christ, you know what? I'll drive. And like, oh. So we get to the hotel, and I have to check into it, but I'm like not in a position to walk, let alone go up to a lobby of a hotel and like have to show him my ID and sign anything. I'm like trying to tell I'm like, hold me. And she's like, I know that you're exaggerating. I don't feel that. And I mean, I couldn't defend myself, but I'm thinking like, yeah, because you ate like an eighth of a piece of one. I've eaten like an entire patch and most of the other one. And I forget what the milligram was, but it was like one of the stronger kinds because they come in, you know, there's a very, very, very wide, you know, gap between, they come in very, very small doses or these extremely high ones where it makes you where you can't even talk if you eat enough of it. And so I'm sitting in the passenger seat because, you know, she drove now at this point, and she's like, it's nighttime. She's like, come on, you're ruining our fucking vacation. And I'm like, so I'm like trying to get up, and I go try to grab my suitcase in the back, and I just end up falling completely out. When I wake up, she's poured a soda on me, not water. It was like a Diet Coke or something she poured on my head. So now I'm covered in this soda. I'm like, oh, it did not help me. It just kind of like got me so I'm semi-conscious, right? Eventually, a couple hours go by. I'm like sitting there. The soda's like dried and it's all sticky all over me. And I'm just so mad. But I'm so high that I can't even really talk or do anything. I'm just kind of sitting there. It's almost like when you're in a K-hole, just in some sort of paralyzed state. Like I knew what was going on, and it was like a nightmare because all I could hear was her bitch ass voice, like, oh my God, you're such a drug addict, you ruined a fucking trip. And I'm just like, oh no, can't defend myself. I'm surprised that it didn't kill me. The alcohol and the fentanyl mixed together like that is probably like one of the stupidest combinations of substances you can mix. Benzos and GHB are pretty bad too, you know, but alcohol and fentanyl, it's like you're begging to get killed. Eventually, I have to go in there and I have to check in, and, you know, she's tells them that I'm drunk. You know, she's like, my husband's drunk. He has a problem, but we don't want to ruin our son's Christmas. And I'm just like, and I'm like trying to sign. Like my signature was like just some scribble across it, and she's like kind of like helping me. Finally, we get in the hotel and I pass out. Wake up the next day, and it's the day after Christmas. Yeah, it has to be the day after Christmas. But for some reason, we're opening presents. I think that we were celebrating Christmas a day late because we couldn't get our shit together for him. She had a few presents for him, and I basically just re-gave him the stuff that I already gave him the night that I tried to kill myself. I'm just like, you know, now at this point, she's eating the fentanyl too, so she's just as loaded as me. And it's really sad. We videotaped it. We have this for the documentary, but I already told the producers I don't want to put it in just because it's like, I don't really want her kid to grow up and see the kind of condition we were in when, you know, it's just, it was sad, you know, because we're videotaping him opening these presents. It's the day after Christmas. That's how irresponsible we are. And we're both so loaded. Like, on the video, she's just like, how you like that? And like her eyes are closing. I mean, it was some real like junky shit, junky Christmas. We're in pajamas and just like, I'm sitting in the hotel smoking a cigarette in a non-smoking room, and you can just hear her be like, hey, can you not smoke? I'm like, nah. She's like, ah. And the kid's like all, you know, vivacious, and, you know, he's like 6 years old. He's bumbling around, and blah, 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 and we're just like catatonic dope fiends. So that was our Christmas. And I remember, you know, the following day he had done his presents. We ended up going to a bar. We have like maybe 2 beers, and we're both just hammered off it. And I had an alcohol habit, but the fentanyl far trumped all that. Like, I didn't even need that much alcohol to not be sick from the alcohol, just because the fentanyl was so overbearing in my system. And, you know, I was going to prison in 2 weeks, and I'm just like, geez, I guess I'm just going to be in a fentanyl, you know, coma for the next couple weeks. We're driving home, and we run out of money. I don't have any money. I don't know. We went to a bar. She spent the last of it. And I'm like, hey, I need to put gas in the car, you know, on the way home. I mean, still on the fentanyl, but I'm not like, I'm doing enough where I'm loaded, but I'm not like out of my mind. I mean, I'm eating pieces of it. I mean, honestly, like, we're eating stuff like maybe like that big, you know, like that much of a patch. And it's like, it gets you high, but it doesn't get you stroke high. You know what I mean? So I'm like, hey, we need to put money into the car. We need gas to get home. We're in like, I think we're in Pismo Beach now. And she's like, oh, I don't have any money. I spent the rest of it on beer, on you. I'm like, first of all, you didn't spend the rest of the money on me. You drank, you bought food, stop. You know, what about all the money I've spent over, like, man. Start getting in this big fight. I'm like, okay, fighting's gonna do nothing for us. How are we gonna get home? She's like, go panhandle. That's what you're best at, bum. And I'm like, oh, all right. So I go out. This girl comes up, and she's like in a X3 BMW, or Z3, one of the little convertible kind. And I go up to her, and I'm like, hey, my wife, son, and I, we were surfing up by Morro Bay. We're not from here, we're from Los Angeles, and somebody broke into my car, took my wallet. We can't even get home. We can't feed the kid right now. He needs some McDonald's. There's a McDonald's attached to this particular gas station. And she's just like, oh my God, that's horrible. She's like, how much do you need? And I'm like, I was like, I don't know. I need gas and I need food. She's like, would 400 work? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay, I forget how she sent it. It wasn't cash. She sent it, I don't know if it was PayPal, or I don't even know if Venmo is, or I don't remember how she did it. Somehow she did it on her phone, and I got it. And she ended up giving me her phone number, you know, and so scandalous. I'm like, I'm with my wife and son. And she's like, call me. She was not bad looking either. And I was like, oh my God. And I went up to my, I get back in the car, and my wife's like, she's like, did you get money? I'm like, yeah, I got like $400 fucking dollars. She's like, oh my God, how? And I'm like, I don't know, this girl in this convertible, and like, she wanted to get my phone number, but like, I'm not gonna do that. And she's like, what? This is how scandalous my wife is. She's like, what? I wouldn't even be mad. You should have just hustled that bitch. And I'm like, okay. I mean, that's whatever. But I did have this girl's phone number. Anyway, so we end up leaving. Now I have money. And we're on, it's probably, okay, so it's like the 26th. We get back to LA, and, you know, I had found all that sketchy stuff in her phone. That she was putting up Craigslist ads, saying that she was in an abusive relationship and that she needed to get out of there. She actually went to this guy's. I'm 100% positive in retrospect now, and I was then, that she fucked someone else. Now, that's okay, because I cheated on her a bunch of times. I got hookers. I cheated on her with non-hookers. I cheated on her with hookers and normal people at the same time. Shit like that. But still, it's like, I still felt hurt that she would cheat on me. And I only ever cheated on her because she hurt me so bad. She would just berate me so much. My self-esteem would be so affected by this woman, And it was like, honestly, I tripped on a lot of really stupid stuff. Like, if she didn't have a Facebook profile picture with me on it, I would get mad. In fact, on Patreon, I found like some marriage counseling video that I secretly recorded, and that's what we talked about for like 12 minutes, the Facebook photo. I'm getting really upset about it, and yes, it's a silly thing, but we'd start fighting over something stupid like that, and then it would turn into like vicious stuff. Root beer barrel dick. She never said that, but she would say, like, I'll give you a perfect example. One thing that really upset me one time, and it's one of the first things that came to mind, is for my birthday. I think it was like my 31st birthday. She got me 3 movies, 3 DVDs. I did not like any of these movies. Now, I hadn't seen them. She sent them, I opened the presents, and I didn't recognize them or anything. I'm like, oh, cool. I've never seen these. Yeah, we'll watch them. They were like some very obscure independent films. So we end up watching them, and I don't like them. I don't like any of them. And she's like, you know how some people, when they like show you a movie and they take it personally if you don't like it, they're like all excited. They're just watching it because they're so excited that you're gonna like it and that they can like have credit for you liking it. It was one of those situations. So she's, I'm watching the movie and I'd like look over and she'd just be like looking at me. I'm like, whoa, weirdo. Let me watch the movie. I'll tell you my opinion when it's over, you fucking creep. And so I didn't like the movie. This is like an innocuous thing. I didn't like it. I'm like, I don't like it. What do you mean you don't like it, you ungrateful son of a bitch? And I'm like, first of all, do not call me a bitch. Not even if it's a son of a bitch, because that, you're saying that my mom's a bitch. I just don't like the word bitch. I'm sure YouTube doesn't either. Thanks. No monetization happening today, or partial monetization, whatever. So we start fighting about the word. It went from me not liking the movie to her saying bitch in some way to me not liking that word. So now I start getting, I'm like, sure, I said, go suck a dick for Tylenol 3 then, you fucking whore. And she's like, eh. She's like, I cannot wait for you to go to prison. You know why? And I'm like, why? So I can watch movies with whoever the fuck I want to. And like, dagger in the heart. I'm like, I was like stunned, defenseless, right? I'm like, I was like, it was like getting, punched physically in the face. I was so like shocked by what she said, because she really meant it. I mean, I found something where she was counting down the seconds before I went back to prison, because she was so excited for me to go, because she was so excited to get trains run on her, whatever she's gonna do. I mean, whatever, to each their own. As I've said, I am very open-minded, whatever, right? But I just knew that she meant it. You never know when like you're fighting with your partner, they say something really mean, and you know that it's true, and you're just like, and you're just hurt. I mean, straight up, I was hurt. And then, like, I said crazy stuff back to her, but that was just one example. Like, I knew that she didn't really love me, and it really hurt my feelings. I mean, above anything else, it just hurt my feelings. So I'd go cheat on her as a result of this. And then when I found out all those bad things about her, I'm bringing it up, and it was just a toxic relationship. I'm drinking myself to death. Now I have the fentanyl, and I'm doing heroin on top of it. It's like, even though I have the heroin, I learned not to eat gargantuan slices of the fentanyl like it's fucking, Pop-Tart or something. I was like, you know, just eating it. You don't do that with fentanyl patches. You just don't. You gotta take little pieces, and I was doing heroin on top of it. So like within the next day, so like I'm a couple weeks away now. Then the next day I'm driving, and remember I'd gotten the car accident with the X5. You know, and it had like those kind of SUV BMWs, or at least for BMWs, they have these rotary fans that cool the radiator. I don't know much about cars. If I'm saying incorrect stuff, it's because I simply just don't know. I'm a bitch. Yes, I'm not a man. A lot of girlfriends have said, you're not into cars? You don't have a cock. And I'm like, the fuck does that mean? Okay. But yeah, I don't know much about cars, so I usually get hustled when I go to like, you know, mechanics or whatever, like Carlos Used Tires. Shout out. I'm driving and it just starts smoking, right? I'm like on the freeway. I think I was going to score or something, and it just starts smoking. And I'm like, oh my God. And I like go to pull over, and the car just won't start again. And the like thick black smoke is just coming out of the hood. It was, you know, I'm on the side of the freeway. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So I had to get it towed. And to make a long story short, when I'd gotten in that fender bender, it had, you know, bent the fan in a way where it didn't have the ability to cool the radiator anymore. And I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. It overheated because this part of the fan was bent. Total loss, you know? And I was like, what do you mean total loss? They're like, yeah, your car, you'll never drive again. You know, it's like a doctor being like, you'll never walk again. And it's like, that's what he's saying about my car. Yes, this car will never drive again. I'm like, oh my God. So I called my insurance and put in a claim, and I forget, there was some way to get an expedited claim, but then you don't get as much, you know, when you get your claim check or whatever. I ended up getting, I think I paid $15,000 for that car. I want to say like between 10 and 15. I got a check for $8,000, and I got it like 72, like literally 72 hours after the accident. And then my premium just skyrocketed. Of course, that's how insurance works, right? So, so I had like $8,000 out of nowhere. And during that time, my dad got me a rental car. You know, I called him and I'm like, Dad, I don't know, what was I doing I wasn't working, and she had gotten a job. She was an executive assistant now for like some corporation in Santa Monica, or I think it was in Hollywood. It was on Santa Monica Boulevard. And, you know, I would take her to work every day, and then I would have to take her kid to school or daycare. And my dad ended up getting me a rental car. So, you know, he's like, well, when you get the insurance check, you should get a new car. You know, get something a little, you know, so get something like $5 or $6 grand, keep a couple grand for some pocket money, and so that you can pay your rent. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going to prison in like 10 days or something. So when I get the check for $8 grand, I just go all out. I already have the fentanyl. I already have an alcohol habit. And now I have $8 grand. And what do? Of course I do what anyone does that's in that position. I go right back to smoking crack. Because crack, despite what reputation it has as like a poor person's drug, crack cocaine is the most expensive drug in the world. Anybody that has done crack knows how expensive it is, because you just never have enough. You could have a boulder. Remember the Dave Chappelle episode where like he trades the house for like some boulder of crack? That's not enough. You know, there's never enough. It's like the dumbest drug you could possibly do, because you just, no matter how much money, you just never have enough. So I just start smoking crack like it's going out of style, right? Just smoking crack. And I start going through that cycle of crack come downs. My girl's right there. She's probably like, what are you talking about? Crack come down. She probably thinks I'm talking about like a week ago or something. I'm not doing crack, honey. So, I mean, obviously I'm going downhill very quickly. I mean, the impending doom of going to prison, I don't know if I have people watching this that have ever been through that, but I can't think of anything worse. I can't. I mean, well, I just lost one of my best friends, Paul. I mean, he was like, it's like Jeff, Paul, we were like a tight group of people. You know, he was a brother to me, and I'm an only child. He was like an actual brother to me. And I'll say that losing someone that you truly love is the only thing worse that I can think of, than knowing you're going back to prison. It's one of the worst feelings in the world. And if you already have the propensity to shoot heroin, smoke crack, drink out of bottles, you're going to do that tenfold, because why not? Why not? It's like you're already going down and you just want to numb yourself. But the problem with drugs, and that I found in the later years, is that it gets to a point and they just simply don't work anymore. They don't offer any numbness, no relief, nothing. They do for a minute. It always like it numbs me for a little bit, and then I lose control. When I lose control, I'm smoking crack naked with trannies in Bakersfield. And that's just how it goes for me. And then I end up in jail. And it's like a vicious cycle every time. Trannies, Bakersfield, jail. And, you know, I've been in this position, or I've been in this situation 3 times now. The 3 times that I've been to prison, I've known that I'm going. And each time it got worse. First time I got busted by the feds. I didn't know exactly when I was going, but I knew that there was a case brewing, and I just could not be happy, you know? Second time was this time. You know, I was in a really bad relationship, and I was really bad on drugs, and I was really bad on alcohol, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then the time after that is when I had the emotional breakdown. I've posted some of those videos of me, the feds are after me, and I was really losing it. You know, it's like the psychosis from all the uppers I've done in my life just kind of like surfaced, even though I wasn't doing any of them. It was a wild time. But this particular time was bad. And then I already had the fentanyl, and I get this huge influx of cash. I get $8,000. The worst thing that could have ever happened to me. I'm smoking, and I don't tell her that I get the check. You know, I don't want her to know that I just got $8,000 like that. I'm just smoking crack. And there's no way to hide crack. I don't care who you are. You just can't, it's not something you can hide. You know, it's like, you know, 2 a.m, completely dark outside, and you're like, come in from smoking a cigarette, and I'm wearing sunglasses. Why are you wearing sunglasses? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just like cracked out, or peeking out the windows, or just crackhead shit, you know? There's no way to hide it. So she starts knowing something's up, and I'm not, you know, she asked me about rent. She's like, what's up with rent? I'm like, don't even trip. I got it covered, because I did. You know, I had 8 G's that I just got, and our rent was $1,300. For sure, I can cover that. Well, what happened is I get down to, you know, I check to see how much money I have. You know, I go to the ATM and I check my balance. And so I got that money probably like the 29th, 28th, I don't know, the very end of January, or December, right before New Year's. I remember that, because I remember exactly what happened on New Year's. Sometime between the trip to Morro Bay to New Year's, I got $8,000. I blew it in like 4 days. And I got down to like $1,000, and I checked my account. It was like $1,046. And I'm like, oh my God. Because when I smoke, I do not stop, and it's just constant, all day long smoking. And I was holding up in, you know, I would get in fights on purpose with my wife, and I'd be like, well, you know what? I'm out of here. And I go to a hotel, and I'd be like, yes, crack time. Lock the door, get butt naked, throw on the looping pornography, smoke rock. Fucking loser. But I was way into it at that time in my life. Not anymore, but then it seemed like the thing to do. So I'm like, oh my God. What am I gonna do? I can't pay rent. And, you know, one of the things is, she knew I was going back to prison, and I told her that I was gonna smuggle drugs into prison. I already knew how this place worked. I was like, I'm gonna bring a bunch of this fentanyl and a bunch of heroin, a bunch of tobacco up my ass, and I will pay rent for you the whole time I'm in there. I'm only gonna be in there 3 months. I was gonna bring like $10,000, $15,000 worth of drugs in my butthole. you know, just because I like sticking shit up my ass, not even because I wanted to make money. It was just like, you know, I just wanted an excuse to stick a plug that big up my asshole. But, you know, I was desperately trying to save my relationship because, again, my fear of being alone far outweighed how much I hated this woman. I just did not want to be alone, which has been a reoccurring problem in my life, to say the least. So, you know, that's like that was like the false promise that in my delusional mind is how I was going to keep this relationship afloat while I was away. I'm going to smuggle in drugs, and everything was going to work out, you know, just some weird pipe dream junkie optimism shit. But then I can't even pay the rent right before I go, because I'm going to go in like a week now. I'm going to prison in 1 week, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I remember right when I found that out, it was at the liquor store ATM, right? And I was taking the subway from North Hollywood to downtown LA, and that's where I was picking up my drugs. I'd go take the subway at Lancashire, I'd get off at Union Station, and then I would Uber to like Skid Row. I'd get my crack, get my heroin, and I'd go back. This is if I wasn't in a motel. This particular night, I go down there, and it's nighttime, right? And I know that I'm fucked. You know, I'm like, God, I'm out of money. I'm not going to pay my rent. You know, consequently, I'm going to lose my relationship, and my whole life's just going to go away. And I knew that. I didn't have a car now, and I didn't buy a car. I blew all the money on crack and heroin and God knows what else, hookers. Just, it was all gone within like 3 or 4 days. So I get down to Skid Row, and, you know, I buy whatever I bought. I bought heroin. I already had the fentanyl. The thing about the fentanyl is that I wasn't in a perpetual state of dope sickness, because I always at least had that. But I'm such a dope fiend that I want to shoot heroin on top of that. You know, heroin's my drug of choice. I always prefer it no matter what. And when I have money, I always, cocaine is like my secondary thing, and then alcohol too. So I'm doing like a lot of different stuff. Go down there, buy the heroin, however much I bought, and I buy some crack. Now, California, I don't know how this is in other states, I forget. Although I am a crack enthusiast, and I have smoked crack in several other states all over the country. I forget if it's like this anywhere outside of California, but in California, you can go to a liquor store and you can ask for a setup. You go, hey, let me get a setup. And they will give you a straight shooter, which is like a glass tube. Usually it has a little rose in it so that it's just not like flagrantly fucking a crack pipe. They can't say crack pipe on it. It's a little like plastic rose with like some foil on the end. You buy that, it's a straight shooter, and then they sell Churro Boy Brillo. It's called a setup. They give you a Brillo pad, which is, you know, you twist it up, bunch it up, stick it down the straight shooter, and, you know, you burn it a little bit, and then you put the crack on the straight shooter, and you kind of just melt it on and take a hit, and you hold it in. Difference between crack and crystal meth is you hold crack in, you should not hold crystal meth in. Crack, you want to hold it in as long as you can, and the longer that you hold it in, and the more oxygen that gets out of your brain, like you get these huge bell ringer hits, and you're just like, blah, and if you throw up, you know it's good. So I got the crack, and I'm going to this liquor store to get a setup, the Churro Boy Brillo pad and the straight shooter. I'm in line, and there's this like tall guy right in front of me, and he's like, hey, can I get a setup? And I'm just like, I mean, it's fucking Skid Row liquor store, you know? It's like, nobody's tripping on anyone, and that's usually the kind of stuff people are buying. So one of those liquor stores, like big bulletproof fucking glass, right? They're plastic, you know, so that, you know, you always know you're in a bad area when it's like that. They won't even have, you can't even touch them, you know? They're like in this little bubble, and you have to like slide the money in one of those little slots. So I hear this guy go, can I get a setup? And he gives him one. And he turns around, he looks at me, he's like, Ryan? Now I'm already like high on crack at this point, and that's scary, you know, when somebody, like I didn't recognize him. I'm like, he goes, dude, you don't recognize me? And I'm like, he's like, it's JP, man. JP? He's like, it's Jason. I'm like, wow. Now JP, if you guys remember the Baker Brothers story, I just talked about him because he just passed away. He just overdosed and died. He was that guy that I talked about in the Baker Brothers story, where I had the kilo of coke in the trunk and the gun, and I got out of it by telling the cops that I was in culinary arts program, and they asked me what the difference between cooking and baking was, and I was like, that's easy. Baking's a science and cooking's an art. JP was the guy who was like a degenerate gambler. Now, he was not a drug addict when I was younger. It's like probably like one of the more popular kids in my high school, but his dad had like taken off when he was younger because he was addicted to poker. Now, I've known some legitimate gambling addicts in my time. I mean, I'm a hardcore drug addict, so typically you run across people with other hardcore addictions that are not specifically drugs, because a symptom of his gambling addiction was the criminality of it. He was a straight up criminal. Good guy. He's like one of those guys. He was good looking, loyal as fuck, sociopathic. You know, sociopath. Did not care. Stop. He's a criminal, and he was an outlaw, and he lived by that code, and he did not care. And because of his looks, he was chameleonic. He blended in everywhere. I mean, this guy, he was a sophisticated criminal. I mean, he had some fucking crazy ass scams, and he liked me. You know, I mean, like, he was 4 years older than me in high school, but we reconnected later because he knew that I was just kind of like a sketchy junkie kid, and he knew that like I would go pull licks with him, and we became like road dogs. I mean, we did some. He's crazy. He's the kind of guy that would like drive around with a gun in his lap and just like, fuck it, let's go hit that liquor store. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, just stand here. He'd like come out and he'd be like, come on, like just peel off. I'm like, what happened? He's like, dude, I just fucking robbed that spot, bro. Fuck yeah. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, $30 is what I mean, motherfucker. I'm like, you only got $30? He's like, yeah. But he was wild like that, you know? And, you know, I sold coke for him for a long time, but we ultimately had it falling out because he rented me a car. He's like, I'm going to Costa Rica. This is all this dude liked. Poker was his number one thing. Number one love in life was poker. Number two love in life was Mobb Deep. Number three love was surfing. That's it. He didn't even like pussy. He told me that. He's like, I don't even like pussy. I'm like, what do you mean? Do you like dick? And he's like, no. I will fuck women. I just don't really care about it. I like money. You know, I like poker, Mobb Deep, and surfing. And that was his thing. And he would call everyone Dunn. Like, what up, Dunn? And, you know, I mean, growing up in kind of like a nice upper middle class suburban town, the amount of sociopaths that you can really hang out with is pretty limited. So I was kind of a choice pick. So him and I started doing all sorts of grimy stuff, man. We were bad. We were really bad. I remember we, not to get away from the story. Oh shit, it's starting to rain a little bit. Not to get away from the story too much, but it's just an example. Like I remember we used to go out to this small college town, IV, and we would hit on girls out there, like try to go back to their place. It was like me, him, and this other guy. And when the girls put their guard down, you know, like we'd be like, hey, let's go to another party. One of us would like open the door and we'd just come in there and we'd clean their place out, you know? And I'm not proud of shit like that. I'm just citing it as an example. Oh, shit. It is raining. So, anyhow, we had a falling out at this time. Hold on, it's starting to rain. Don't want to lose my cigarettes. We had a falling out. Holy shit. Ah! What's up with that little weird ass yelp? All right, it's raining. But I'm just gonna keep going because I don't feel like shutting up. And if I don't keep talking, then I'm just gonna go annoy my wife. So let me just keep telling you guys what's going on. So You know, he was never a drug addict, and he always kind of looked down on my addiction. His thing was gambling. Like, he would literally rob liquor stores just so he could go get money to play in a poker tournament. And he was a damn good poker player, too. I mean, like, you know, he'd be in poker magazines. He won a lot of tournaments. But he always kind of looked down on my drug addiction. You know, we'd, like, steal shit, and then he'd go play whatever, baccarat, blackjack. Poker was his game of choice, but he'd see me, like, shooting heroin. He'd be like, ew, that's whack, Dunn. What are you doing? He always said Dunn because of Mobb Deep. And, so anyway, geez, it's really loud right now, huh? We had a falling out because I was selling coke for him. He would get kilos. He would break it down into 8 balls and, you know, quarters and whatever. And he would just have me be his runner. And that went on for a while. And then he went to Costa Rica to go surfing, and he had rented me a car, and I didn't return it when I was supposed to. He's like, hey, go return this, you know, within the next week. He was going to be gone for like a whole month, and I didn't do that. I was just like, oh, cool, a car. So I just didn't return it. Then he ended up picking me up after he got back, and he acted like it was all good, and we were driving in his car, and we're like stopped at a red light, and he just sucker punches me in the face, and I'm like, ow, what the fuck? And he's like, really, dog? Like, you're gonna fuck up my credit like that, you piece of shit? I rented you a house. I mean, he rented me an apartment, he rented me the car, and like, I had the simple instructions of just returning the car, and I didn't do that. So he was very mad, and that was the last time I hung up with him. Like, he punched me, and then he's like, hey, we're going to this house, I want you to run in there and rob these guys. And he gave me a gun, and I went to go do it, and they weren't home, thankfully. So I just broke in and I took a bunch of bud from these guys. That was probably in 2006, something like that. And then I started selling drugs, and I didn't, you know, like on a bigger level, and I didn't see him again. You know, once in a while I would hear from the other guy. We had this other guy who's still alive and still doing stuff, so I don't want to say his name. And he'd always call me and try to get me involved with like these wild schemes. Like, you know, they'd want to rob like a gun shop, and they had like the blueprints, and they wanted to rob this little jewelry store that was like at a resort, and they had it all planned out where they were going to have quads on the beach. We were going to go hit it with guns, and then go drive the quads to this other parking lot where a getaway car would be waiting, and we'd get away. It was like some really like villainous shit. I mean, I will give it to these guys. These guys like were pretty sophisticated criminals. And like one of these guys called me, and like the third, you know, it was me, JP, and this other guy. Another guy called me. He's like, hey bro, do you want to go on this mission that we want to do in Africa? We're gonna go jack these diamond mines, and like we have it all like planned out. I'm like, dude, fuck yeah, let's go. And we were going to do it, and then for some reason it never happened. But they had it like all planned out where we were gonna go out to Africa, and like they knew some mines that like they knew somebody that like knew the vulnerabilities of this place, and we were gonna go try to rob this place in Africa, like wild stuff like that. So anyway, now it's 2016. I hadn't seen the guy in like 10 years. And he has like probably as short of hair as what I have now. And he usually had like a little bit longer hair. And he's like, Ryan? I'm like, you know, it's JP. And I just didn't I'm like, damn, man, what's up? So what are you doing down here? He's like, probably the same thing you are. So I end up going with him to his car. You know, he had a car, because remember I took the subway down there. Go in his car, and I smoke crack with him, and I'm shooting heroin with him, and I'm like, dude, I thought you didn't do drugs. And he's like, I got turned out by this little hood rat when I was in Vegas, because he went to Vegas a lot to, you know, to play cards. Now he was fully turned out on crack and heroin, and he died recently from an overdose, which really sucks. I mentioned in a video not too long ago, but see him that night, and we hang out. He's like, hey man, do you want to go to the casino? I'm like, I don't really have money. He's like, nah. He's like, you know, I never lose. Let's go. I had like maybe $900 in my account because I'd spent like whatever on drugs. So we end up going to this casino. I think It's the same one I got in the fight with that guy from the Sandlot. The Commerce. We go to the Commerce Casino, and we're playing blackjack at first, but eventually go play baccarat. And I'm losing like a lot of money. Like I lose like $300. I promised myself I wouldn't gamble with that money, but I just start. I mean, you know, he's pretty. Come on, bro. Come on, we'll get it back up. You know, typical gambler mentality. We'll get it back up, bro. We'll get it back up. Don't even trip. And you know, eventually I'm down to like $200, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm just watching my. You know, I'm trying to. What my whole plan was to, you know, be able to make enough money gambling to pay my rent. And we started off with blackjack, yeah, and then we went to baccarat, and I pretty much lost. I got down to like $200, and he's like, dude, let's go play poker. But we had to get on these lists to play, and I will get into what happened with this in the next part of this story. But I'm about to go to prison, and then we'll get back into prison stories. My second little violation, pretty interesting. Met Big Meech, and, you know, I was able to pay the rent, if you know what I mean. So thank you guys. If you haven't checked out the Patreon, please do it. Even for $3 a month, you get early access to all these videos. And I certainly appreciate you guys. Palabra.